We do have some folks who don't necessarily always participate historically in the meetings or maybe new. And I will just explain for everybody, the convention is that usually in this group, the preference has been to have me kind of serve as the facilitator of the meeting. We used to do it that way in finance, but then Stacy stepped forward and she is the master of ceremonies there. If anybody would like to take on the lead role and moving the meeting forward, Lisa Kent's done a great job in the ESS coordinating committee. So other than that, I will do my best unless somebody wants to volunteer. We only have 2 action items today, actually one definite action item and then one that is a possible action item. And the first action item that is definitely on the agenda is to review the meeting summary from January 23rd. As I said, I did have an opportunity to go through, listen to the recording. I hope we captured the main elements of it. I have to admit that we don't always do the best job of capturing all of the attendees. So the participant list in Zoom is really helpful for that. But I would just ask if you see any errors in the participant list, please correct us. So I would open up the discussion on the January meeting summary. Are there any edits or corrections? I know that this is a long summary, so if you want to take a quick pass at it, please do so. And if anybody, at whatever point anybody's ready to make a motion, please do so.
Did you say January's?
I'm sorry?
Was this January's meeting? Was that the one that you sent for like February information?
This is not the ESS coordinating committee. This is the standard committee that was held in January. Yes.
I can make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion from Carolyn.
This is Ashton. I can second that.
Thank you, Ashton. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, may I call for a vote? Any objection?
The motion is from Caroline?
Carolyn.
Caroline, okay. And Ashton.
And Ashton seconded. Thank you. All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Or entering aye in the chat pod.
Aye.
Aye.
Katie Carlton needed a passcode, so I sent it to her. She's going to join the meeting.
If you have the link, you shouldn't need a passcode, so maybe Lisa can communicate with her.
Well, she told me that her app apparently needs updated by IT, so that's why she needs a passcode.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I sent it to her.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank
Very
you,
good.
Census.
Okay, we're on the motion to approve. I've heard all ayes, which is normal. We'll close that part and ask if there are any opposed. Hearing none, we will declare the motion to be approved. So I'm going to take you back to the top and let's just talk about the agenda a little bit. So I would like to provide some introductory comments. We do have a preview of the survey results here. Carol and Ashton sent me a note earlier in the day asking, hey, why isn't the whole survey here? And the reason is we haven't closed the survey yet. And I would have to view this as sort of a preview of the survey results. And we felt like the most interesting or beneficial part would be to see the answers to the questions that had the highest results. This does not mean we're not going to share the rest of the survey. It's just not done yet from our point of view. I would say even at the staff level, we really haven't had a chance to fully review everything yet. These are sort of the snippets that kind of stand out at this point in time. I want to assure everybody that in the not too distant future, first of all, the survey will close, and then and that is going to be on May 3rd, which is a Friday. And then after that, we will publish the full results. Every question, we're probably going to stratify it a little bit so that you can see, well, here's how the real estate attorneys responded. Here's how the title people responded. We're going to try and break it up into groups because there is some natural division in terms of what people are more interested in than or not. So we're going to break it up that way. And then we will be publishing the complete, unfiltered, open-ended comments. So those questions about searching and those questions about e-submission and just generally inviting any comment, all of those are going to be published without any editing or spinning or anything like that. I suppose if somebody enters anything extremely obscene, we'll filter that out. But other than that, you're going to get whatever it is. And we're looking forward to digging deeper into the results. But in the context of this meeting, we felt it important just to share the things that really had the highest score, and we can just use that as background for the discussion. Then the meat of the agenda really is the consideration of the statutory policy recommendations. Most of you probably feel like this is a never-ending record because we started talking about some of these things as early as February of 2023, and I think we've talked about them in every standards meeting and some special meetings that we've had. The ESS coordinating committee meetings have included these topics. There really is a lot of repeat stuff here that you have seen before. And when we actually started this conversation, at that point we weren't really sure what the full context of it was going to be, but now there is a context that's sort of has the context of the whole modernization initiative. So there's some maybe more meaning to it than even there was at the very beginning. And then we're gonna go through this in as much detail as you want. I do not intend to go through and give you a dialogue about each and every item because you've seen them all so many times before. It probably is better to pick out the things that you're most interested in and focus on Q&A, and then you can, as a group, decide where you want to go. Because these issues do mostly relate to document formatting, I want to make sure that anybody who volunteered, and really anybody that's on the call, that even if you're not a member of the standards subcommittee, as we have from the very beginning of this process, this is an open dialogue. So please ensure that you are making your voice heard by either entering a comment in the chat pod about any particular subject or the overall conversation as well. And then we'll see where the conversation leads. I do have a few project-related updates to share at the end, and it's not my intent to drag everybody through a full 3-hour meeting because we have talked about this so much. So that's sort of how I see the flow. Even in the discussion of the survey results, it's not my intention to go through every single question. Want to mostly focus on things that you're interested in talking about or following up on any questions that you may have. So does anybody have any question or comment about sort of the flow of the meeting. Is everybody okay with that, or does anybody want to make any adjustments? Okay, so just a quick overview of the survey. So far, at least as of April 17th, we received 358 responses. This survey is not an easy survey to take. It's long. It requires some thought. We have observed people starting it and then coming back later to finish it, because it is, compared to most surveys, it's a fairly deep dive. And so in that regard, we're encouraged by the number of responses. We also appreciate the fact that we've communicated this survey to the stakeholder groups. So basically the distribution has been, we've invited or encouraged the stakeholder groups to share the link with their members and encourage their members to respond. We've also specifically encouraged them to make sure their policy committees and their thought leaders, whoever they may be, are aware of it and have an opportunity to respond. And then we've also invited pretty much every registered user, either a submitter or a registered user of the search application, to respond to the survey. How should we feel about the results? Honestly, I'm not sure we know from the standpoint of numbers. For a survey, generally speaking, it's a pretty good number. On the other hand, you know, it's been distributed and indirectly or directly, to thousands of people. So you always want to have more than just a few hundred. But in the world of surveys, I guess 358 might be considered a statistically significant sample. So we'll go with that. As you can see on the next slide, so far, the main respondents have been people who are coming from law firms, title companies, or surveyors. If you combine the responses from banks and credit unions, for example, you get to a little bit more critical mass. That would be, roughly 10% of the responses from that group. If you kind of combine brokerage companies and residential real estate, you get a little bit bigger number, but still not a significant number. So that's who we've got so far. It's when we stratify the results, when we break it apart, we're probably going to look at these primary groups of law firms, abstract companies, surveyors, financial institutions as a group, and maybe realtors as a group, depending on whether they're commercial or residential. So that's what we've got so far. And then as far as the search results, basically the questions were divided into two groups. One group was questions relating to searching for land records, that is the land records database. And then the other one was more specifically about e-submission practices. And then, as I said at the top, what we have done is we've ordered them not by question number, but by what got the highest rating. And as you can see, in the case of the search topics, this whole idea of normalization did rank fairly high. On the other hand, things that I know some people were very, very interested in, such as establishing a property notification system, that didn't necessarily score as high as other things. That doesn't mean it's a low score, just didn't score comparatively to the overall responses that we've received. So even in this case, you have 35% who said it was somewhat important, and 36% said it was very important. So that's not a low interest, but it's not the highest ranking either. And so we're going to have to use some judgment as we interpret some of this information. But we really kind of just said we're not going to show you things that are 2 or below. That's sort of where we drew the cutoff. in the e-submission area, interestingly, the highest ranking question overall was that good communication in the submission process is very important, scoring the only 3 rating out of 3 stars in the entire survey, followed by wanting to have efficient and consistent document processing practices. And then the whole idea of redacting PII got a high score as well. Then I'm gonna skip ahead here. Then, you know, sort of the underlying context of the whole thing is, you know, we're looking for a fee increase to go along with all this stuff. And we didn't put out a number. We didn't say what the recording fee would be, but we did use the term reasonable, okay, which is very subjective, I know. But even saying that, 78% of the respondents said they would be okay with a reasonable fee increase, which, you know, when you think about asking the common person about, do you want your taxes raised? The answer is obviously no. You know, so when you get a rating like this, it's encouraging, I would say it that way. And then more specifically, and this is not the entire question, but the question itself related to when you think about the things that were very important to you earlier in the survey, would you consider a recording fee increase that helped fund those very important things to be a good investment? And the answer to that was 84% yes, out of the respondents to that question. So, you know, the question wasn't, you know, would you support a fee increase for anything? Would you consider it a good investment? The question was more of a, for the things that you really want us to do, if we use the fee increase to fund some of those things, achieve some of those goals, would you consider that to be a good investment? That was the general context of the question. And 84% is a very good number. And I won't be surprised if that holds through the end of the survey generally, and I think contributes to, you know, a very good story to tell. So I think I'm going to pause here because I said I wasn't going to talk about every single question, but let me just answer any questions you may have relating to any of the individual survey questions or the survey process overall. Let me be quiet. I do see a question from Carolyn in the chat pod asking or indicating you have questions about PIN, font legibility, ESS notification, platting, and so on. So whenever you're ready to jump in, Carolyn, or anybody else as well.
My questions don't have to do with the survey. Do you want me to wait?
Okay, if that we're talking about the survey now, so
Yeah.
but jump in as you see appropriate. I guess I would say that. Are there any questions about any questions that we have shown you in the survey? Any questions about the survey overall? In the chat pod or verbally?
I don't.
Lisa, yes, we actually, Lisa, haven't done it yet this morning, probably when this meeting is over, but we do have an email all ready to go to send out to the users. I'm also going to send it to the stakeholder groups, say last call, and absolutely, I'll send a reply. I'll email with a link to the survey as soon as we're done here. Thank you for that suggestion. Any other comments about the survey? So I'm hearing none. I don't want to cut anybody off. All right, then we can come back to that. If you think of something later on, please don't hesitate to bring it up. Then the next thing that's in your packet is something that I distributed several weeks ago after we had a meeting to talk about this topic. And I put this together just to kind of put in more common language or, straightforward language. Hey, here's what we're trying to do with these various items. And we distributed it. I'm not going to go through it. It's just there as a reference point. If anybody has a question about it, I would be glad to address it. But it's there if you want to refer to it. The meat and potatoes here of our discussion today is to see if we can pull together some step forward on this whole issue of document formatting and related policies. The memo is intended to sort of say, okay, here's what we've learned so far. And at least from my perspective, I think there has been a lot of consensus in the discussions overall. On the other hand, there are a few things that there is some disagreement about that, we just have to acknowledge exist. The background here is just to provide some history as to how we got from the beginning to the current point. And then what I did was try to take each item that is related to policy and provide some background and explanation about what the recommendation is and the rationale behind it. And they're divided into several groups. So the first one really is all about 331 606B, all the sections. And so each of the paragraphs here do not necessarily correspond with the section numbers, but I do call out each section number in the explanation. And so that is there for you. Then there are corresponding policies about general filing requirements that are outlined in 331 6B subsection 2 that aren't about formatting. They're about things that are related to the content for this. And there's an association between that and indexing requirements that are referenced in 558.49. And those are referenced here as well. And then in addition to that, there are general filing requirements that are described in 331 606. So those are mentioned. And then at the very end of the memo, there are a couple of technical issues that are in 331 606A, I'm sorry, 601A, that we have talked about and at various stages as well, specifically relating to additional transactions. And then we kind of backed into the discussion about the definition of a page primarily through some discussions that we've had with the surveyors working group. And so, I know you guys have heard me give the whole litany multiple times. I feel like I should just pause and say, here they are. What are your questions or concerns? And we can talk about them. And so I would just say, let's start with the main document formatting section. And in the context of maybe reviewing back against what everybody said in the last meeting in January, sort of how do you feel about this? And if you want to, then the specific code language that's being suggested begins on page 39, and we can talk about that as well. So I am here to answer your questions and participate in the discussion with you.
Oh, Carolyn.
Okay, so one of my questions has to do with 331-606B, and it talks about basically in B where we've switched it from an 8-point to a 10-point size. And then the surveyors have an 8-point size requirement. And then in letter D, the very next or 2 paragraphs down, it talks about all text within the document instrument shall be sufficient legibility to ensure the text is reliable when reproduced. I'm going to guess that 8 or 10-point refers to any documents typed, 8-point for surveyors, and D is possibly handwritten. But what about, I think B and D seem to be a little bit redundant. Couldn't we just say all text or typed document of an instrument shall be sufficient legibility? And then is there a surveyor's code that is requirement for 8-point instead of 10-point font?
Okay, so I'll take a stab at that. If you were to do a comparison of what the draft says versus what current law is, it actually is pretty consistent. The main policy change is that the current law has a reference to pre-printed text, which in the current law says some of that, whatever pre-printed text means, can be 8-point. Okay, so the policy change removes that reference to pre-printed text. And what the standard subcommittee in all of the discussions leading up to this said, and what the working group said, hey, let's just make it 10-point across the board. And so that's what they did, with the exception of the surveyors, because the surveyors do have different types of documents, and 8-point has been generally accepted, and so that is generally retained. And then current policy also has those same requirements for legibility along with the 10-point requirement. And I would say that sort of companion language is very close to what current policy is. Not a lot of change there, except it's modernized from the standpoint that it doesn't refer to typewritten anymore. And if you go back, I think maybe it's 2 years now, maybe 2.5 years, we were experiencing circumstances where documents were, as they were being processed, were very pixelated, and there were some folks, Nancy being among them, who were very insistent, saying, we got to clean that up. And so you had type font that actually technically was 10-point, but it wasn't very legible. So my feeling from the discussions of the subcommittee and working group is that they were okay with just saying 10-point across the board, but they still wanted to use the term legible. And so that's kind of how it all fits together, Carolyn. So I would not consider what's represented here regarding 10-point and legibility to be a big deviation from current policy. I would defer to other participants to express their point of view on that as well.
I agree with your comments, Phil. That's kind of what we had talked about.
Yeah. Same here.
That gives me a better explanation. I appreciate that. It just, like I said, I wonder if maybe there could have been some more between B and D combined then maybe, but that's okay. That makes more sense now that it isn't just handwritten. It has to do with pixelation and the way something's submitted electronically is my guess.
Right.
Not referring to the font on the document itself necessarily.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Then another question of mine I have is that in one of the documents that you supplied from the ESS committee referring to index parcel identification numbers of a recorded conveyance, that we're not going to change it after the recording. It shouldn't be modified. It's the way it came in is the way we index it. But then in other sections, it talks about where we're asking the auditor to let us know and wanting us to change it after like say it's a new subdivision or something that the auditor let us know and wants us to go back to that originally recorded document and change it.
So there are a couple of things at work there. One of them is that particularly the language that you're referring to that says that a previously recorded document should not, that PIN shouldn't be altered. Okay, what is that about? What that is about at that particular section is to say that, you know, if you have a document that was recorded a year ago or 2 years ago, whatever, and then the property is conveyed from party A to party B, and it's subdivided, and then the parcel identification numbers change because of that subdivision. What we are hopefully saying, and if it needs to be reviewed to clarify it, we can. But what we're saying is, don't go back to a document that was recorded 2 years ago and update the parcel identification number, because the PIN is a kind of a historical reference as to what that was at that point in time. On the other hand, and I acknowledge not everybody agrees with this, okay? So, you know, you're bringing up a point that merits discussion, but when we talked about parcel identification numbers before, generally what members of the committee, subcommittee, and working group have said is, hey, if it's present, you know, we should require the submitters, the preparers, to put the parcel identification number in the document as it is today. So, and that can be indexed. But if the auditor's office, because it's a subdivision, divides it up, well, the recorder doesn't know that because it hasn't been subdivided yet, right? They record it and then it gets subdivided. And the main objection that I heard from recorders is, I'm not going to go research that. I don't have time to go look that up. So at the same time, let's say within a 30-day period that the parcel ID numbers change, can a process be set up so that the recorder's office is notified that this recently recorded conveyance, there's new parcel identification numbers that can be added to the index basically contemporaneously? There are some recorders that we talk to who say, yeah, that's the way we do it today. We get an update from my auditor and it's kind of an automatic thing. We figured it out. There are others who say, you know, that may not be a workable thing in their office. And so in this version of the overall policy update, again, recognizing that not everybody may agree with this, but can we say that we should give some responsibility to the auditor's office to communicate with you as recorders when that changes? But the intent isn't to go back and change all of history. It's just to change that recently recorded document.
But on page 43, it says if a parcel identification number is modified by the county, such as for a subdivision or consolidation of a parcel, the county auditor shall timely provide updated parcel identification number information to the recorder, which shall be indexed with the recently recorded document. And to me, that insinuates changing a recorded document after, say, something gets subdivided or a GPN or a parcel number changes. And I think that's intuitive to what you're saying and what I agree with. You know, look on page 43.
Right, and you're referring specifically to the section, which for many of you or all of you is a new phrase. I acknowledge that, but that is intended to be an update to the index, even though it may not appear on the document. If it's new knowledge, that can benefit a searcher. Um, you know, if you can get the information from the auditor and it's contemporaneous, why can it not be indexed?
Yeah,
So
so
you're
here in
wanting us to change the PIN number after something was already recording, therefore changing what
Well,
was done at the time of the recording.
well, you you already have, if you discover a misspelled name, okay, you can go back and fix it. It's not altering the document itself. It's just adding additional information to the index. So
I don't
So
go back
here-
and change if a name is not spelled right on the document, it is not spelled right in my index. I
Mine
do
either.
not change that. We
No.
don't do that.
Nope.
It would have to be a corrected document to do that. And in this PIN case, I may put in the new number, but I'm not taking out what was on the document because that is what we index, what is on the document. But I would put the new one in if they provide it, but I wouldn't take out the other one.
Kathy, you were going to say something.
Yeah, so we get a list from our assessor's office at the beginning of each month for the past month with all the parcel. It'll have the document number and then the parcel ID numbers that correlate with that document. And we just add them in under the legal descriptions. We put the parcel ID numbers in. Webster County, Lindsay showed me that that's how they were doing it. So if there was, a parcel ID number on the document, we already had that indexed. We just add the new ones to it. So all of them are there.
Right. And that, thank you, Kathy. I didn't ask you to do that. I didn't send you a text message or anything, but yeah, that's exactly the idea behind it. And I acknowledge that not everybody necessarily agrees with that. But in terms of utility of the parcel identification number, let's just take the example of somebody wants to look up information on the beacon system that says, I want to go look up the information on that property. The beacon system parcel ID number may in fact be the more current one. And so the idea behind adding utility to it is if not to go back in history, but just say that concurrently recorded document, somebody looks at the index there and see, okay, maybe I should look at this parcel number because it's in the index. Whereas if they just use the old parcel number, you might have more difficult, I'm not saying impossible, but more difficult to find. So I understand the different points of view on it. As your project manager, I am making a recommendation to do this because it would add utility to the system, and I think be a benefit to the stakeholders. It is your decision whether or not you want to support that or not, but that is my recommendation.
Okay, but then it says, and this is where whatever we decide, I'm fine, but it has two opposing views, because the other portion that you have sent says, in the event that a parcel identification numbers associated with a property are subsequently changed by a county or city assessor, the county recorder shall not modify the index parcel identification number associated with the recorded conveyance document. So in one section, we're saying we're not supposed to, in the other section, we're saying we are, or we're adding to it.
Well,
I
but
mean,
there's the associated document, and we can look to see if that can be clarified. But in that case, the associated reference is to the previously recorded document. The older document that maybe occurred a few years ago. So you don't want to go
Okay.
back and change the history, but for the recently and contemporaneous, one that was just recorded. Yeah, I think you
So
do want to
you're,
update that.
so you're saying change the most current document is what you're
Yes.
trying to say?
Right.
Yes, I'm trying to
Yes.
say that. Yes.
Okay, and
Yeah.
then I agree. What about keeping the original but having a place for maybe add or clarifying that? I guess to me, that would be probably more helpful. And according to the survey or other people, that not a lot of people are using this anyway. And I don't know, but in the Lynn County area, nobody uses Beacon, so I'm not sure how much
Oh.
people are gonna be using that
Yeah.
through ILR either.
Well, there's a
Who
lot
has
of
this
Beacon
idea?
users here, so. And we do basically what, we've been adding parcel numbers with the assistance of our auditor's office for years.
And we don't in Lynn County, our auditor does it all.
So,
Yeah.
And he doesn't notify us of anything because they just take care of it. So I would work out with him that if there's something different, he's gonna have to be able to go back and change that deed.
Yeah.
Cause they do it for us in Lynn County, and I know some other counties are similar to that,
Yeah.
where we don't touch the pins.
Carolyn, just a quick follow-up in terms of saying that last sentence in the modification is 331-606. It's unnumbered paragraph, assuming that it would be numbered, but the whole purpose of saying the parcel identification number index information for antecedent documents. So I purposefully, maybe there's a better word, but antecedent is what came before, not the
Right.
current one. That's what I'm trying to get to, but we could explore some additional language that would clarify that. I guess what I would encourage the working group and the subcommittee to give consideration to on this point is do you want to do that do you want to go this direction or not? Lisa Kent has a comment in the chat pod. I'll just read it. Beacon has referenced other parcels when multiple are on a deed. I can ask our assessor's office if it references back to the original parcel if there is a new created off of it. Yeah.
I don't think so.
Oh,
I did-
another part I think you should also read, Phil, it's the part where she said their splits are only done after July 1st. And so this means they would not be doing that update to the PIN until then.
Do you strictly update that PIN on deeds, or with that deed came in a package with mortgage and affidavits? Do you do it on all of them because it's the most recent?
We just add it to the deed.
Yeah,
it's
I wouldn't
on-
want to.
Yeah,
Conveyances only is what it says, right?
and
I
I
think
don't,
my issue is with the word change or modify. I'm not going to change or modify what's on a document, but I will add, I don't know if we can clarify that, I will add that new number. I just will never change what was on that original document.
And I would agree with that.
yeah, the number archived with the first document is that number. It's the next document as it comes.
And I get that now, Sue. I didn't understand that before this, but now that makes sense. I think there could be some clarification language. And I also understand what Nancy's saying on the current document, whatever that GPN or parcel number was when she took it in, she's not gonna remove that. She'll add it if there's an updated parcel number. So then there would be two. But
Right.
so there's two different things kind of going on, I think.
Yeah, you'll also find some of the deeds because when they're transferring like maybe 8 properties, you'll have 8 to 10 parcel ID numbers that we're adding on one deed because
Exactly.
they had so many properties they were conveying.
I wish it was only 8 to 10. Try 20 or
I
30
know,
sometimes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, is there gonna be enough room in our systems to, if it's a 40-acre tract divided into 30 lots, are we gonna have enough characters for that?
Yeah, well, these are farmers that own 5,000 acres, so.
Well, I know, but like a subdivision of a 40-acre tract, for instance, that might be 30 new GPNs that
Yeah,
on that one current deed, because it hasn't been redeeded yet, or is there room for 30 different parcel numbers?
So
generally
I don't
speaking,
know.
they come in one at a time, though.
putting the language aside, which, you know, everything can be amended and clarified, and please, I'm not representing what's in front of you as being perfect. Okay, it may need to be updated. But to simplify the issue, I think the choice in front of you is has multiple parts. So the first part is, for the first time, it would be a requirement to index postal identification number. Okay, that's the first big thing, because 331-606B has a phrase in it that says that the preparer is supposed to include the parcel identification number, but there's no companion element anywhere in the code that says that it should be indexed. And as a result of that, maybe it's not a result, but the reality of it is, at least as I understand it, is that the use of parcel identification number is variable across counties. Not everybody does it, or they don't do it the same way. And so the big threshold question is, can we get everybody to agree that day forward we're going to index parcel identification numbers? Then, if you say yes to that, then some variation of this language would go into either 558.49 or 331-606, or maybe both, as represented here. And then the next question after that is, okay, if there is a consolidation or a subdivision, then what should we do with the new numbers? Should we just let them sit there until it changes hands again, or do we want to put that in our current index with the most recent conveyance document, so that if somebody looked at our index, they would be able to find it by parcel identification numbers, acknowledging that that will in some cases require maybe more work on the part of the auditor or the assessor to share that information with the recorder, and it may require some additional work to index that change when it comes in. In some cases, I think I heard Carolyn say it's kind of automatically happening behind the scenes. And in other cases, maybe there is a business arrangement or a workflow set up between the two offices that says, okay, we're going to share this and we're going to do it timely. In the example that Lisa Kent brought up, which is legit, you know, and their jurisdiction, if I understand what she said correctly, then they don't necessarily contemporaneously update those numbers. They do it once a year or something like that. And so how is that supposed to be handled? And that may need to be accounted for in the, I didn't hear Lisa say she wouldn't do it. It would just be, it doesn't always happen as quickly as you think it does. So we may need to accommodate that. So to repeat in more summary fashion, do we want to say, hey, from this day forward, we're going to index parcel identification numbers, and then after that, can we come up with some agreement about the updating of the addition of new parcel ID numbers contemporaneously to that recently recorded document? And then can you agree to some minimum time frame somehow within a year or 30 days, 6 months, whatever it is, that it be updated?
A question, do we know that every service provider has a field for that? I know we talked about it before, but
They should.
I know they should, but do they?
In Tyler, we put it under the legal description because there's enough lines. You can keep adding more
So
lines.
it's not a
we put it
separate-
under the legal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a separate field there. So would
No.
that be searchable then, Phil?
First of all, I do want to assure the group that we have been talking to the service providers about this. I can't say they are the most responsive group I've ever dealt with in terms of communicating back to us, but they know that this is something that we're talking about. Secondly, I do have a quarterly service provider meeting set up for tomorrow afternoon, and we will bring this up again. I know that they have ample notice that this is being talked about. I can tell you that the ILR database will accommodate this. It's there, and in fact, the database that we have actually is related to
do.
Lisa's question, because there's a separate field for the tax identification number and the other version of the number. And one of the things that we will need to do that's not done yet is, and we've started this conversation, for example, with the Beacon people, is to say, let's make sure that we're indexing the right version of the number so that we can tie our data together. And that answer is not totally known yet. I'm going to acknowledge that, but we know that we need to have there is a definitional issue that needs to go along with this, so everybody's using the right number to achieve the goal. So
will these service providers be charging the counties to add or change their system if they don't have it set up right?
and remember, we're talking day forward here. We're not asking anybody to go back in time
Yeah.
and update everything.
My guess is depends on your contract and if the field exists.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a field.
We do
So-
in solutions, but I don't know about the others.
I think it just needs to be turned on.
Thank you, Renee.
Yeah,
She
Fiddler
said
has it.
Fiddler has it too.
Yeah, we do.
So to me, this is even though we're not going through everything line by line, if you take a step back, this policy question, what do you want to do? Because let me just use this as an example. If you decide as a group to do something differently, there's going to be another memo written that says, this is what the subcommittee recommends, okay? Not me, you. So, what are your wishes regarding these three questions?
Personally, I'm fine with it now that I understand it better. The one part is historical, not current deeds, so it doesn't seem conflicting for language anymore. I didn't understand that, and I think that if we say maybe update wording to say adding to it might work better than removing it. I think that would solve a lot of problems, and then we can figure out the logistics later on as far as finding out how often our auditor or assessor updates pins and those types of things. But I think generally for me, my question has been answered now and makes sense as far as that goes. The only other thing that I see as far as language differences, and you can correct me, and hopefully it's just the way I'm reading it, is in the ESS, it says that you shall index it. And then in another section says the parcel identification number when present on a document submitted for recording, meaning that then we should do it. And that doesn't necessarily,
Yeah.
I think that it doesn't jive together very well.
Yeah. If you're looking ahead in your packet to the draft ESS policy, yes, it does say if present. And basically what I'm saying to you guys on this point is I'm not going to ask you to act on that policy today,
Okay.
because we're having this bigger discussion about
Okay.
the code. So
Okay.
that draft would change later on depending on what is done here. And then of course you still face the question of, does the legislature, are they going to vote for it or not? But So what are your wishes, putting that policy issue, the ESS policy at the back of your packet aside, what are your wishes with regard to this general direction, these three policy questions I've asked you?
Okay, that makes sense.
Clarify the three questions again for everybody.
Phil, would you verify the three questions, please?
You want me to repeat the questions?
That was Nancy's request, yes.
Okay,
Just so everybody's clear on what we're agreeing to.
yeah, okay. Here's the way I would say it, and if you need to correct me, please do so. But the first threshold question is to support the idea that there will be a requirement that recorders index postal index numbers going forward. That's critical question number one. And then question number two, in my mind, is that with respect to the recently recorded conveyance document, that is the one that just happened, not the previous ones, not the antecedent documents, but just the ones, if there is an update in parcel identification numbers, that that everybody agrees that they will work on setting up some type of process to add, I'm using your words, Nancy, to add to the new parcel identification numbers to the index. And then I think the third question, from my point of view, is, okay, what does timely mean? How timely is timely? And I'm not sure you absolutely have to answer that, but I think it's a question, kind of goes back to those that have business processes similar to what Lisa Kent described earlier. Okay, how soon does it have to be? I'm inclined to go in the direction of some language that says as soon as practicable. So it may not be identical in every county, but as soon as you can. And so the way that would be manifested is, how valuable is your index if you want to wait a while to do it. So I would use a phrase like as soon as practicable to give some leeway, to individual counties. That's the way I would go. So those are my three questions. Did I get it right?
As soon as practicable, or as soon as it's available?
Practicable, I would say. As soon as practicable means as soon as you can reasonably that it can be done. So if Lisa's dependent upon another office to do it, well, we aren't going to criticize her for that, right? So practicable is, I think, the right word.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, I think we can do this. I would really like to see us do this. I think it's possible.
When we do it, when we get our list, we just have the list. And so if we have some downtime, we pick up the list and start entering them in. And it doesn't take very long to
No.
enter them in.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we're doing it now, and it seems like there's a few counties that are on this call today that are doing it now. So it's not unheard of.
And of course, it'll
Yeah.
all have to all go through the association as to whether or not they agree.
And it'd be
put
date
this
forward,
forward.
there'll be a date set.
Yeah.
Okay.
No one's gonna make anybody go
Okay.
back in history and add them.
And
No
just as,
way.
That's the
yeah,
clarification I needed.
nobody's asking you to do that.
No, no.
The process is going to be, whatever happens here gets advanced to the ESS committee. And then I know that there's a discussion that Nancy's planning to have at summer school. So there'll be another shot at it.
But are you talking, you're gonna change ESS policy? Because if we don't have that in code, how can you change ESS policy to tell us to do it?
I'm not presenting to
Okay.
changes in ESS policy today.
Okay.
That is just there for background information.
Okay.
I think we want to get, we want the whole association, all the recorders to have a good idea of what this is, because if it goes into section 331, then it has to be presented in the legislation and get final approval.
And
Yep.
that's what I'm talking about. At our meeting, we have to approve what we want to pursue as a whole association, not just one committee. So I'm just clarifying that.
Yeah. Understood.
I understand that. Definitely. Okay. So I feel consensus on this point at this moment in time. Carolyn, ask your next questions.
Okay, one more thing on that. I am good with this, and I know that I mean, doing the PIN number is fine. If there's an updated PIN number, us recorders aren't gonna know unless we're notified. So my question is, has anybody talked to the auditor or the assessor about this as a way to notify us and to see if it's doable from that department standpoint?
Yes, partially. Okay. And by partially, I mean, we have had a meeting with the auditors, affiliate representatives, mostly to talk about the auditor transfer fee, but we did raise the question with them that we wanted to talk to them about postal identification numbers. And we have another meeting with them scheduled for May 2nd. And we'll see how that conversation goes. But I think the right thing to do would be to say that when that meeting occurs, it would be fair to tell them, hey, we're kind of looking at this direction here. How do you feel about that? And because we know we need their input and participation to do that. So that's where we're heading with it.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Okay, so then my next question has to do with same page we're on. It says for platted land, the index location information shall be included in the lot, block, subdivision name, and the name of the applicable city, town, or county, and section number.
Yes.
What's that about the section number?
I would say that it originates with the conversations that we've had with surveyors, specifically the Surveyors Association. And what they have wanted to do, and this is not a new issue for them, but they want to be able, even if land is platted, be able to search for platted land by a non-platted element. So the way that data is currently structured, you can't do that. And I think this is true in county systems as well. But if they wanted to say, okay, I know that this lot is in this section, they want to use section number as an element of the data of the search. What we have shared with them, and I'm sure would share with you, is that in the Iowa Land Records database, we do have a data element in platted land that is the section number. Okay, so the question before us is, can we, and again, I'm talking day forward, not going back in time, can we say that preparers of documents, even if the land is platted, when you provide the platted land information, include the section number, because everything has a section number, even if it's platted, right? It's
But
in a location.
In Lynn County, that there is a section number for 20 different township and ranges. The same, all of our in Lynn County, there's 1 through 36 section numbers in 20 different section, township, and range. So if I said Phil's first addition to the city of Cedar Rapids, section 12, that Cedar Rapids spans across multiple sections. Township and ranges. So we wouldn't know just by a section number which area that is.
It would be and the way this is written and the intent of it is that it would be the responsibility of the preparer to know which section they were in.
But if that's, I mean, I don't understand the reasoning to even include it because it's not helpful in some of the cases. Now, if you said section, township, and range, that would be. But again, if I have a plat for Phil's first edition and I say in section 10, well, that could be in 3 different township and ranges in Lynn County. That's not telling me anything about where you're located.
And
I think what they're looking for though is to not use that as a standalone, but do it in combination with the other information.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think what she's saying is that we also need the township and range as
I
part
think that's
with
what
that
she's getting
section.
at.
Yeah, and I think that was supposed to be part of it, Phil, was Sue, do you remember when it section, township, range to be included?
It seemed like it should have been a township and range added to that, but
Yeah,
we'll be having another meeting and we can revisit that to make sure we're clear on what it was they were asking for.
So would it be a fair summary to say that yes, if when you provide platted information to us, that you also provide us with the section, township, and range?
At least then it would make sense, because if you only provide a section number, that does no good.
Okay.
yeah, and I think that was the intent, because you got section 12 and I've got how many townships here? 14, so I've got 14 section 12.
Okay.
So,
You would be making the surveyor very happy if you did that. So I will acknowledge you that, you know, we were looking at, well, you know, if we didn't do all the data elements, would one of the data elements help you? And so far they said yes, but at the last meeting, they also did say it would be better if it was section, township, and range. So I would put this in the category of put in the maybe category, depending on further conversation with the surveyors. Is there, if we did say section, township, and range, even if it was platted, would there be an objection to that?
I could see that'd be a problem for preparers to figure that out. I don't know, because they have not used it in the past.
Theoretically, they're already providing you with a full legal description, right? I don't read those every day. If you get platted land, does it also tell you section, township, and range or not?
In the
Initially.
document, on the map it will.
do it already?
Yeah.
The map
Okay.
should have it of the drawing, just not in the indexing it depends, not necessarily.
Okay.
If it's a replatted, maybe not.
I'm going to how do you want to do this? You want to say a qualified yes, depending on further discussion with the surveyors, or
Can we go with a maybe, if pending discussion, further discussion with the surveyors?
yeah, something like that?
I'm good with that.
It's an iterative process here again.
Yeah. Because
Okay.
I have a weird situation in Clayton County. I have 5,000 plus acres that doesn't have a section, township, and range, and it never did.
Yeah.
It was platted before there was such a thing.
Wow, that's old, Sue.
Hey,
That is
watch
old.
it.
Not you, just the land.
Right, right.
I
Just
think
kidding.
I think we have some direction on that, and the notes will so reflect.
I'm not opposed to it. I just think we need to make some clarifying,
Okay.
that there might be some situations where it might not happen.
Yeah,
If applicable.
yeah, I
Okay.
would say if applicable would be a good start.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Carolyn, you got another one? You're on a roll.
Yeah, the last one I have, I don't know what section it is that I read, but it has to do with electronic recording. So right now, if we reject, or right now, say Simplifile or something, we can go over $5 or whatever the amount is. We don't have to reject the document. We can just change the fee automatically and it gets recorded. Now, somewhere in this language, it talks about we were going to have to inform them about the fee change and the reasoning. And what I'm gonna ask is that either then we do away with being able to change or just amend the fee and go to a straight rejection if ILR isn't sending, like, say we amend a simple file deed to, because there's an extra legal. Is ILR currently, when we adjust that fee, sending simple file or whomever it is, say, hey, the Lynn County added $5 because of 2 legal descriptions, are they already getting that notification? And if not, then I would rather see we have to reject the document if we're going to have to notify them, because I don't want to record it and then have to go back and figure out how to notify them.
Right. In the case of the electronic recording, yes, we are notifying them. And also the contract that we have with those e-recording companies basically says they're agreeing up front that the fee can be changed. So they are legally and practically notified, and there's no intent to expect the recorder to provide that notification. ILR is doing that on your behalf.
And it's going to meet the new requirements within the document of
that
the
is
reasoning.
that is the intent. And the reason it's written the way it is because in an earlier version of that, there was a concern that, hey, I have a different business process for how I handle a fee change in the paper document. It might be different for each, customer. And so instead of trying to create a cookie cutter that applies to everybody, would say, well, let's just make that notification apply to electronic documents since we're already doing it anyway.
Okay. And I just want to verify for 100% when a recording fee for an electronic document is adjusted by a recorder to correct an error in the calculation of the fee, it says the recorder shall notify the submitter of the reason and basis for adjusting the recording fee. Now, if I'm not doing that and you are, I'm not sure. I'm guessing that you wrote that to meet the intent, but it doesn't. I don't want to be on the hook for somebody saying, well, per code, you're supposed to tell me, and that didn't happen.
Well, what I would do in that case, since you're concerned about that, and I understand where you're coming from, in that particular sentence, I would suggest changing it to say the submitter shall be notified of the reason and take the recorder out of that, because there was no expectation that you do that. And I think that would be a good change and maybe relieve that concern. Would you be okay with that change?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We can do that. It's very reasonable. Other questions about any of the items or provisions of any of the sections? I know there has to be some.
Yes, I do. I still disagree with leaving phone number out. And we talked about this before. My notes said we decided to leave phone number in. The one reason being and it says that your paragraph says that let me find it, a document or instrument may contain the contact information of the person who's best able to address any issue. But no, they have to provide something for us to contact. Otherwise, 90% of mine that I have to contact are phone calls. I mean, we all have those ones from these big mortgage companies where you never get the right person. That's different. But 90% of mine or local people or within the state that you can get a person. So we talked about emails change too frequently. And if they provide an email, then if that person's gone, you don't get anybody. If there's a phone number, you're more likely to be able to get somebody at that office. So I definitely do not agree with taking phone number out. And to
I
tell them that they may also contain a contact information of this person. If they don't, then what do? We can't get a hold of anybody. That's my opinion.
I appreciate that, and yes, at the last meeting that definitely was discussed, and um, I guess I would just raise the final time with you about, you know, when you ask people to put stuff like phone numbers or email addresses in the document itself, you know, it's out there for everybody. And I understand the practical side of wanting to have some contact information. And it's okay if you disagree with me on this, okay? I understand that. But I do want to raise that caution again. And the intent of adding in the language that refers to the additional contact information is there with the intent to encourage the provision of useful information. As I've said, in the e-submission world, we are addressing that by building it right into the interface. It's a different thing than putting it in the record. And also, if you choose to, you know, we can put in email address again into subparagraph A.
I would rather have phone number there. You know, like I said, emails change, and if that person is gone, you don't get anybody. I don't know. I've never heard of anybody getting extra spam email because somebody looked at a document at Iowa Land Records or in my office and got a phone number from that. I don't think that's something that's really going to happen. I mean, they've been on there for years and nobody has ever complained that I get these calls because you've got my number on here. I mean,
And it's
I feel strongly about that.
It's the preparer whose attorneys, most of their attorneys' information's online anyways.
Yeah.
So I'd like to have both optional phone number and or email, like make it optional, which they put on there.
But again, you're going to run into the email issue. What if that person's not there that day?
Yeah,
And
but
more than
phone around
likely, a
here,
phone number, if there's an office, you might get somebody.
well, we have several attorneys that don't even have assistants. So if you call, you don't get anybody. So emails work better for some of them, but
So
and we have one attorney that doesn't have his correct phone number on his document, so you can't even get a hold of him if you call that number.
Yeah, and I think you'll always get that. But like I said,
Yeah.
90% of
Doesn't
ours,
make any
we're
sense.
successful. Yeah.
okay. So Kathy, just building off your comment, would you amend this to say the name, address, and a telephone number or email address?
Yeah, I would put it an option. They could put either phone or email.
Okay. All right. I do want to take credit for one thing, and that is I did put the preparer and the return address back in the list. Okay, can I get a small amount of credit for that?
Yeah,
Just a
good for
little
you,
bit.
Phil. I'll give you credit.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're gonna, and in the what we advance, it's gonna say name, address, and telephone number or email address. Everybody okay with that? All right. Good. Next.
So then you'll take out that paragraph that a document or instrument may contain the contact information, blah, blah, blah.
I would like to recommend leaving that in, even with making this change, because I'm
Okay.
still a believer that we need to encourage them. It may not always be the preparer who can help you.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. As long as it's in there
yeah.
that, in that
Yep.
first paragraph A, then I'm
Yep.
okay.
Yep, that would be my suggestion. Okay, next topic. Who's got one? And if you don't bring it up, I will.
I'm looking through.
All right. So while you guys are
Okay,
thinking about it.
I did
Okay.
find one real quick.
Okay,
So on
go ahead.
page 38,
Yes.
on paragraph 1, it talks about the size, but it says it just refers to a document. So a document could be 11 by 17. I don't want a mortgage company or an individual putting something on 11 by 17. I would think that should just say, you know, something like except for plats, which could be that size.
Okay. Wait, let me take you to page 44.
Okay, maybe I
Okay.
missed something. But I read that and I thought, oh no, people will be crowding everything they can on 11 by 17.
Okay, so the original language of page is retained, which refers to a writing, printing, or drawing other than a plat of survey. And then new language is added, which says, for the purposes of a plat of survey, plat of survey, or a drawing related to a plat of survey, page also means 11 by 17 or 24 by 36.
Okay, all
So
right, I
it-
must have missed that. Thank you.
It is limited to surveys and plats.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yep. And going back to an earlier comment from Travis, I really appreciate the red mark that you made, and we may need you to draw something further later on.
This is
I
Ann.
didn't even see it.
Hi, Colleen.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay.
I am on a webinar, so you're gonna hear some noise. But I'm on
Okay.
mute, so it's okay. This is, yeah, it'll
Next.
be fast, so yeah. I'm in there and I'll take your bomber.
Next topic.
Hi, this is Lisa. I'm going to jump in for a second. Whoever just said she was on a webinar and she was on mute, you were not. So heads up.
She is now. She's back on there.
Okay. So I kind of my sense is that, as I went through the meeting summary for the last meeting, and then was preparing for this meeting, I kind of got the sense, there was more consensus around things than maybe I thought there were, based on re-listening to the discussion and kind of thinking about, okay, how should we phrase this or that? I kind of left with that feeling, and I'm getting that feeling again. There's one other big issue I feel we need to talk about, but what are the things that stand out for you in this that we need to consider? Keep thinking about that. I want to make sure I declare something so that it gets said out loud. The first, or these are one. You'll notice that we talked about index legend a lot in terms of, should we apply that to other documents? And I know the survey is not done yet, but I think it could be a good thing. But on the other hand, so far, it really doesn't seem to have gained much traction. And so for that reason, in this version of the draft, index legends not mentioned. And it's because there just doesn't seem to be as maybe much traction as we thought there might be. And I don't see a compelling reason to include it until a stakeholder or stakeholder group comes forward and says, hey, we really like that idea. What happened to it? But it doesn't seem to be there. And so for this draft, I've left it out. I still like the idea personally, but it just doesn't seem to be resonating. So the surveyors love it. And so we're trying to make it that even better in our other work group, but elsewhere doesn't seem to really have struck much of a chord. Another thing I want to make sure we say out loud is that we have talked a lot about the idea of is there other information that we should index? You know, notary information. Should we be indexing that? We've talked about indexing information about references in other systems like MERS. We put that on the table to see if there was any traction or interest in that. And so far, I have to say, no, there really hasn't been that much interest. With respect to notary, interestingly, when we had our face-to-face meeting with the Land Title Association, their basic position was, well, we don't want to create more work for recorders. And I was amazed at their empathy for you guys. And so, and looking at the preliminary survey results, there doesn't seem to be much interest in that either compared to other issues. So those ideas were purposely not advanced in this document. And I'm not saying no, never, but really, in the grand scheme of things, there are other more valuable things that we can move forward with. So that's how it's written. So I don't want anybody to miss the fact that we intentionally left a few things out. So I'm sitting at 10:30. We've done really good for an hour and a half. And I promised you that we would not be making this a marathon meeting. I have one big issue left to talk about, but is there anything else anybody wants to bring up that we haven't done already or that needs to come up? Okay, well, let's talk about the one big thing then, and then we can move on with the rest of the agenda and send you on your way. I think the big thing is may versus shall. And I would direct you back to page 39 and the language in the introductory paragraph of 331 606B. And your group, your last meeting in January, a lot of discussion about this point. Then we got to the ESS coordinating committee, and there wasn't the same measure of unanimity, shall we say, at that meeting about may versus shall. So in this document, I have changed it back to may. Not because I am rebelling against you. It is because after some thought, at least in my opinion, may is the right term to use with regard to declining documents. So much of the formatting issues relate to, can a document be recorded? Is there room for the stamp? Is the information legible? Is the signature discernible? Does it have the right content? The content that I need as a recorder to do the indexing? And if any of those conditions is not present, illegible, incomplete content, no room for the stamp, I think recorders should decline the document. I think you should, because How can you do your job if you can't read it? How can you do your job if there's no place to put the stamp? How can you do your job if they left out key content information that is required for you to do the indexing the way the code says you should be doing? And so I don't think there's any question that recorders need to have clear authority to decline a document if it's not recordable. And I think in this case, using the word may does give you that authority. And I'll read the sentence here. Maybe we can improve upon it. It reads, if the content of a document or instrument does not conform to the requirements of this section, or if the form of a document or instrument prevents or inhibits the county recorder from performing their duty, the county recorder may decline to record a document or instrument. To me, even though it says may, it gives you clear authority to do that. So what do you gain if you use the word shall? And the question was raised in your previous meeting. Well, I'm afraid that if it doesn't say shall, then some recorders are gonna not get with the program and do something different than they should. And I understand that point of view. But in our experience, what we've seen is when you have the word shall there, it ends up being, boy, I am predisposed to decline. If it ain't perfect, I'm predisposed to decline. When I think you should be predisposed to record. So sort of in the context of the overall modernization discussion, in the context of what are we going to do to make sure that our stakeholder groups support our fee increase or whatever that may be, how should we phrase that? And in the grand scheme of things, I think May gives you everything that you need. And what I heard from some other recorders, particularly in the ESS meeting, is, hey, you know, I don't want to be forced to find stuff for a picky reason. I'm going to record. So that was important to them. So I'm not here being anybody's agent. I'm trying to just step back and say, what's the best position for recorders to be in overall? And I 100% support having the authority to decline. So anyway, I think that is an issue that is unresolved, and I think you should talk about it. And you guys, as a group, decide, how do you want it to read when it goes to the ESS committee? There you are.
I am okay with the may because I feel like if it said shall, maybe when you first took the document in, you missed that they didn't have the exemption code on there for no transfer tax. So if it had said shall, and then maybe the attorneys would be, well, why didn't you catch it? Why did you record it? Because you should have declined it. Then may kind of gives you leeway both ways.
Thank you, Kathy. Other comments?
I'm not saying I don't like may, but I think you're always going to have human error whether it says may or shall. I mean, we're going to miss things. It's just going to happen. I don't know if that I don't know, not verifies, but if that makes it okay to say may, I don't know.
If you didn't see it, there were a couple of comments, or at least one additional one from Lisa in the chat pod. So just draw that to your attention. I'm sorry, the message from Katie. Sorry about that.
Yeah, if you look through the standards, they all say each document shall, or all text shall. So you've got your shall there. That's why I would probably be okay with may.
Okay, here's the way I'm reading the room is upon reflection, everybody seems okay with may. Anybody object? All right, I think we've covered what I would consider the potential hot button issues. Any other comments about any other provision that is before you? Thank you, Naomi and Jolene. I see you've added your comments in the chat pad. Any other comments, any other issue that you want to raise? I think we have a couple of things that we've identified that we need to follow up and do some additional research on, but I really appreciate the conversation and discussion today very much. I know I said this at the beginning, but and we have had several people that are not technically on the committee introduce through comments, but I just would reach out to our non-working group members or any observers or anybody else that would like to chime in about anything. Very well. Please stop me if you do want to interject something. Otherwise, I just want to run through a few updates and share with you some content. And so the next item in your packet is just there for your information. But as we proceed with the modernization initiative, we're reaching out and communicating with the stakeholder groups. This is actually a co-edited, so this summary was reviewed with the ILTA leadership to make sure that we captured the ideas, and this is a reflection of the conversation that we have with them. And I think it was a very healthy dialogue, and I would say that they very much appreciated being invited to the conversation. And my general interpretation of the discussion is, in terms of a number of issues, they seem to be okay with the number of things that we were talking about. And in fact, if you look at the Q&A document that I put together for them, because in advance of our meeting with them, they sent a bunch of questions. And rather than try to take time in the meeting to answer everything, I did a Q&A response to them. And a lot of things they were just interested in understanding better. They didn't understand exactly what they were, but we felt it was a very healthy conversation. They identified a couple of things that they wanted us to talk to surveyors about. If you read this last section, they may be interested in, from an abstracting point of view, maybe incorporating some more specific references to adjacent property. Apparently, that's something that they look for in their title searches. Anyway, I'm not going to go through the whole document, but I think it gives you some insight into where they're coming from, and my judgment would be that they did not seem to have any strong objection to a fee increase. They understood. They were surprised, like many people, surprised. My gosh, it's been since 1985. How has that happened? You know, the kind of thing that, you know, really tells you that, you know, this is not going to be a huge red flag for their group. So I would just commend this to you to review in your leisure. If you had any questions about it, I'd be glad to try to answer them. And some of the Q&A, you know, might be useful to you because you didn't quite hear that message before quite that way. So any comments about that before I move on? So I would direct you to pages 54 and 55. And this is not a new document. It was crafted way back in February. I've distributed it in several different venues at several different occasions, this being just the latest version of them. I don't mean to call you out, Carolyn, if you're still here, but she's sent me a question about this morning as well. And so I think it might be helpful just for me to give you a thumbnail description of what normalization is. Normalization is not intended to directly affect your county systems. This is something that we would do within the Iowa Land Records database. And the basic idea of it is to, through various means, try to fill in information gaps within the Iowa Land Records system. Not in the county system, but in the Iowa Land Records system. So right now, for some counties and some years, a property search using section, township, and range or lot block subdivision is not very useful because there's no data. On the other hand, that data exists. It just doesn't exist in that form. And there are techniques that we can use through technology tools that we have that could extract some of that parsed data so that it could be inserted into the database for that particular set of documents or date range or in that particular county, so that the search would be more useful. And we would do that. I would want you to envision it as a project. So we say, okay, we're going to work on filling this gap of data in this county, whatever it may be, and here's the source of the information we're going to use. And we would have a discussion with the county recorder and say, hey, we would like to be able to do this. This would fill in a gap. To make sure we were doing it right and everybody was in agreement on what the data was. And we could just simply sort of take an administrative technical action to make the system work better. If the county was interested when we did that, we could make that data available for you to put in your local index if you wanted to, not as a mandate, but just if you wanted to. It's something that we hear from users that they wish the data was more complete and consistent. And, you know, we really can't expect anybody at the county level to go back in time and fill in all that information. It is what it is, but we do have the ability to do some of that. It will require time and human effort and resources, but it is something that we have included as an idea in the modernization initiative. So that's what it is and what it is not. There's no intent to require anybody to change anything locally. This would be something that would happen within the ILR system, and if it could be leveraged to benefit improving data locally, and the county wanted to do that, we would certainly work with you to do that. So to me, that is what normalization is. And it is in the modernization initiative. It did get a fairly high score in the survey so far. I'll put in quotes. But I put this memo together just to kind of put it out there to see what everybody thought about it. And, you know, if any of the standard subcommittee had questions or comments, you know, I would love to hear from you.
It would remain optional, correct? Is that right?
I'm going to say it this way. I want everybody to understand that ILR would like to do this, and it's something that we will communicate about before we did anything. So I don't want you to feel like we're going to do something in the dark or behind closed doors. We'll be very transparent about it. What's really optional about it is whether the county wants
That's
to
what I
take
meant. I'm
advantage
sorry,
of
I
it.
didn't clarify my response.
Yeah.
Locally.
So we'll be transparent about what we're doing and when and where, and then trying to structure it so that you do have the option to use or benefit from it locally if you want to. But we have no intent whatsoever to force anybody to change anything locally. That would be optional for sure. Okay, if you think about it and you have further questions, please let me know. And then the last thing in your packet was referred to earlier, and yes, it is still labeled proposed action because I just copied it from the February ESS meeting packet. So I'm not proposing any action here today. I'm sharing it with you just for reference and to say we're going to put the policy part or the ESS policy part on the shelf, and then we'll see what happens with the legislation, and then we'll revisit it. So it's just there for background. It's not a proposal at this time. So going back to the top of the agenda, I would just say, just as a matter of information, from my perspective, the main modernization initiatives that seem to be rising to the top are the recording alert and notification system, which has been clearly communicated to me that this is a top priority for the association. I get it, and resources permitting, we will do it, and we have a preliminary plan of how to do it, and we're very excited about it. The idea of reconnecting with Beacon to share information so that our land records users can access their information and vice versa. We think that could be done so much better than we were doing it before. And we hear from users who have said, please bring that back. And I think it would be something that the stakeholder groups from our conversations with them have expressed interest in. We just talked about the normalization. I think that is rising to the top. The Back to Blue reform isn't necessarily scoring so well in the initial survey results, but we know that people are really interested in fixing that so that it does two things, that it provides some more tangible benefits to court officers and law enforcement personnel, but at the same time does it in a way that still gives the real estate industry trusted users access to the information. And so that remains on the list. The surveyors are really interested in helping get more historical surveys and plats online. We got a lot of details to work out, but our conversations with them have been very positive. So those are the things that really, in terms of the ILR portion of the modernization agenda, really seem to be rising to the top. Other things are beginning to fall to the wayside, which we expected to happen. There are some other things that are still on the list that are under those other achievable things. The things that would be beneficial to the ILR system and our users specifically, updating that external submitter API is, it absolutely has to happen because it's sitting on an old platform and we could make it so much better. It's something we really have to do. The multi-jurisdiction plat approval process is maybe a little bit more vague, but the surveyors are really interested in it, and I think it would be a huge feather in the cap if we could pull something like that off. Our current redaction system has been in place since 2009, and while it has served us well, it could be better. And from discussions that Kelly and I have had, we think we could internalize this and save some money in the process. So that's why that's still on the list. And then I'm kind of regretting that we didn't include this question in the survey, but I was having coffee with Dylan Malone, the director of Iowa Title Guarantee, last week, and I said, gosh, is there one thing that we could do to help you? What would it be? And he said, make text messages work with two-factor authentication because they don't really, they find the email system not 100% reliable. And that has been on our list behind the scenes, but it was the first time anybody actually said it out loud to me. And so I'm sort of arbitrarily kind of putting that in the other list for when we go forward. So that document that we've been circulating about abstract modernization ideas, I think it has served its purpose in terms of stimulating thought and generating interest and answering questions and really bringing some life to the whole idea of what modernization means. But we always knew that we couldn't do everything, and we couldn't do everything at once. And I just wanted to share with you a perspective on kind of how things are starting to sort out. And as we get to the final results of the survey and analyze those, I think it will continue to sort out so that we end up with something that is meaningful and also achievable. And that's where we're heading with it. Questions generally about modernization or that whole subject area? I think the only thing I would add is that as the members of the standards subcommittee, this is stuff that we're talking about in future agendas because we'll have to start working on all the details. Let me close with a quick software update. Iowa Land Records is now 100% in the cloud. We are not operating our own equipment anymore. I think it's going to be a more solid, reliable, long-term platform. I get some of Kelly's time back as a developer, which is a huge deal. There are some changes coming up in the recorder interface. We're very close to releasing this into production, but there will soon be the ability to search each submission by county only and date range. So you'll be able to say, show me everything that I processed in the last 30 days or 16 months ago, whatever it may be. So I'm looking forward to announcing the production release of that. Could be as soon as next week. And And then we're continuing to work with your service providers on the updated APIs. As I mentioned earlier, we have a quarterly update meeting scheduled with them tomorrow. Many of your service providers have made a lot of progress on the new submission API. Others have some catching up to do. If you have specific questions about your service provider, I would be happy to bring you up to date, but probably not appropriate for this particular meeting. And then the county upload API is a companion piece. This is the API that we use with your local service providers for you to upload documents to ILR. And that is essentially complete, but a little bit more work to do. But we're looking at implementing that probably in early 2025 at this point, given where everything else stands. So those are things on this software development update that I hope are of interest to you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about any of those or other topics that are on your mind. So we'll all jump in at once here. Well, since you're all so talkative, I would say let's call it a meeting. Any further discussion on
Been a good
anything?
discussion today. Thanks, everybody.
Yes, thank you, Phil. Thanks, everyone, for your comments too.
Thank you. Some of you I'll see in the fee policy meeting tomorrow, but I have to agree. Really appreciate everybody's engagement and discussion. See you soon.